Awesome.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar with Floraly. My name is Emily. I'm the Senior Campaign Lead here at Birchal. And just before I introduce you to Stefan and Alec, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm coming to you from today. So Birchal is based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. So as mentioned today, I'm joined by Stefan and Alec from Floraly. Birchal's working with them on their upcoming crowdsource funding offer. A few of you might be a little bit unfamiliar with what crowdsource funding or CSF is, or you might know it as equity crowdfunding, but it's a relatively new form of fundraising here in Australia that allows startups and small businesses to raise capital from a large number of smaller or retail investors, as well as wholesale and sophisticated investors through an online platform such as Birchal. So instead of seeking traditional funding from sources such as banks or venture capitalists, companies can turn to the general public, and often that's their communities, to raise money in exchange for equity in their business. Birchal Financial Services will be the licensed intermediary for this offer. And I do want to remind everybody who is here today that the discussion in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice or recommendation to invest. So please do your own research and always consider the offer document and general CSF risk warning before investing. If you do need any more information, please head over to birchal.com. We've also got support over there, so please message us if you have any questions. Now, how today's session is going to run, I'll hand over to the team at Floraly in just a moment, who will take us through a little bit of where Floraly has come from, what they've achieved since their last raise, and what they're looking to achieve with this raise. We'll then switch to a Q&A session. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you will see a little Q&A bubble. So if you've got any questions during the presentation or afterwards, please pop them in there and we'll get to as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. We're also recording today's session, so if you do need to jump off early or you'd like to send it to somebody you think might be interested in the offer, we'll be sending the recording around. So without further ado, I'll hand over to the Floraly team.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Stefan. I'm Alec. Hey. Do you want to start with a little background for where we've been and where we come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started Floraly way back in 2019. Our goal still is to change the way that we buy flowers in Australia. The kind of traditional way to buy flowers, even online, was super archaic, with very outdated, clunky websites. We saw an opportunity to bring the floral gifting industry into the 21st century by using kind of modern e-commerce sites, revamp products that fit our generation, and kind of we're on this mission to spread joy to people throughout Australia.
Yeah. So last time we've done a crowdfund before, for those of you that don't know. We raised on Birchal about 3 years ago and had fantastic experience doing it. We had over 600 investors who joined us and backed us. And as part of that, at the time, we'd had only just done a bit more than $1 million of revenue as a company. And we've now done $6.4 million in the last year. We had, as part of our plan for promises to investors last time, we fulfilled all of them. We expanded from just doing next day deliveries from Sydney to doing same day deliveries in Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, and Brisbane. Yeah, and I think we've been extremely happy with not just the growth we've seen in the revenue by business, but also in the operational capabilities.
Absolutely. So we've obviously built out the team since then. Our team is led by the general manager, Matt, super strong ops background, and he's obviously supported by his marketing team and his ops team. He's got a local ops team in Sydney and an ops team in Melbourne as well.
So I'll give you a bit of background about two of us, actually, which I think is quite unique to Floraly. So Stefan and I actually Floraly is not the only company we've founded. We've founded 4 successful e-commerce companies, all of them doing multi-million-dollar revenues. So we've got about a decade of experience running e-commerce companies, and digital marketing is kind of our bread and butter as part of that. So that's been a big part of what's made us so successful in the last 3 years since we raised previously, is that we get e-commerce and we know how to raise. We know how to raise, we know how to grow the business, and we know how to acquire customers.
Yeah, I think the last time we raised, we were finding our feet. We had just kind of figured out product market fit. I think since then we've proven that we found product market fit. we've been able to, as Alex said, we've scaled the business about 5x in the last 3 years. It's probably the fastest growing flower gifting company in Australia, probably ever. Yeah, so just phenomenal growth. We've just been able to acquire customers, super loyal customers, which we're very proud of. We've got about a 20 to 30% return customer rate, which is phenomenal. And kind of now we want to
set our goals for what we're going to do now. So this is kind of the important part of this particular fundraise. We have focused on growth for the last 3 years and been happy with that. What we really want to do now, and our push towards making this a long-term profitable business, is for us to take all of those customers that we're really good at acquiring at the top level, and then build systems for bringing them back. So you'd call that an e-commerce retention or remarketing systems. And the best part about that is the way the flower industry typically works is that people go to Google when they want to order flowers, and so as a result you pay there to acquire customers. And although we're quite good at doing that, what you don't want to do is continue to pay for those customers to come back again. And so our real focus as a part of this round is building really good membership and retention systems. Part of that will involve getting an app, and we know this is a great strategy for growing the business because there's a company in the UK called Bloom & Wild that we reference a lot, who I can't remember how many hundreds of millions of pounds they do in revenue, but they're a very big startup, and about 30% when we last looked of all of their revenue is driven through their app. And so we really want to focus this round on taking that growth strategy that we've already put together and then finding ways to take those customers and bring them back in without having to pay to reacquire them. And that's going to be, we think, the biggest driver for our profitability in the future. I think there's like a few other things we should probably note about our business that are interesting. So as we mentioned, we run 4 different e-commerce startups. It gives us a lot of skills. It also has a really great benefit, which is that and this is a question I think that everyone will ask us later, we actually don't pay ourselves for Floraly. Thankfully, we don't need to, because we only pay ourselves from the dividends and profits of our other companies that are already profitable. And so part of that is we can take all of the money that's invested in this round and put it towards growing Floraly. And it also means that, and this is a question we often get asked, is when will you as an investor make money from this? Well, all we can say is that we will only make money when you do, because we're only going to get paid from the profits or the dividends or the sale of the company itself, just like you will. I think that probably sums up our
absolutely
our business and our position.
Yeah, Emily, do you have any questions?
Absolutely. So questions have started coming in already. So if anybody does have any more questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A box. So since your last raise, how much of that have you invested into the company, and is there any further funds left to be invested from that raise?
Yep. So we've invested all the money into the company, and we have also subsequently raised a further private round of another $600,000.
Part of that is actually money that Steph and I have personally invested in the business, where I think what I would say to that is that should show how excited we are about this opportunity. We really believe in the future of this business, and that's why we put our money behind it as well.
Great. So some media have been reporting that the flower industry is highly unsustainable. How sustainable are your products and supply chain?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. It was one of the main reasons why we started the business. So a bit of background here is probably necessary. Before companies like us existed, before Floraly existed, the main way that you could buy flowers was initially, let's look back 20 years ago, over the telephone. You'd use they're called like flower networks, and you'd call up a company and they would redivert your order to a local florist. And then when the internet came along, those companies just moved online but kept that same model. And the problem with that model is that every florist around the country has to stock enough flowers to be able to build any bouquet for an order that might come in. The result of that is you end up with about a third of all of those flowers dying and being wasted before they get purchased. And the way that we do our business model is that we either source after someone has ordered, or we only manage to work directly with the farms to bring in what we need for that week, and then we change the products that we actually sell online based upon the stock we have available. And so the result of that is our flower wastage is about 90% less than those floral networks would have had 10 or 20 years ago.
And there's obviously kind of more and more in the news, you'll also see that a lot of flowers are imported into Australia. And it's true that we still do sell imported flowers, but it's definitely part of our mission to try and source as much local as possible, Currently, we're doing about 70%-ish local flowers, but it really depends on the time. Unfortunately, Valentine's Day, we're still selling a lot of roses.
And you can't get roses in Australia at that time of year. So
there's still a long ways to go, and we can definitely do a lot better. Our sustainability committees kind of works on that on a monthly basis. But
yeah,
I think we're trying.
There's a few other things that we're really proud of there, actually, because sustainability is a big piece for all of the companies that we run. For every single order that someone places on Floraly's website, we donate a meal to Oz Harvest, to someone in need. And we also are a member of 1% for the Planet. So we donate 1% of all our revenues to environmental charities, and have in the past helped out other organizations like Care International. So we're big on being charitable and making this a sustainable business.
That's great to hear. So with the $6.4 million in revenue, what were the profit margins on that? And do you have a burn rate at the moment, or will that be outlined in your offer document?
Yeah, great question. That'll be outlined in the offer document. The profit margins, so our gross profit margin is around the 50% mark. And then obviously the net profit margin depends on how much we're focusing on growth and scaling the business. So I think what that does is give a really good outline for the potential for the company. And this really is like a lot of businesses, a business that increases phenomenally in profitability with scale. The more of the orders we can get in there, hence why we focused on growth, then the more our base fixed costs are covered and the more we can put to our net profit. So, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to make this a great business.
Terrific. So how much are you looking to raise in this round, and what are your plans for subsequent raises post this round?
So kind of our goals for this round are between 300,000 to about $1 million. Last time, as Alec mentioned, we had 600 people join us, and we were able to raise around the 600K mark, which is just phenomenal. And I'd love to see that replicated. In subsequent rounds, we're not sure. We know that this money is going to be allocated towards strengthening our subscription business and strengthening our retention channels. So we know where this money is going to go, and then we're going to see where it takes us.
Yeah.
Awesome. And anybody looking for the valuation, that will be released when the offer does go live. So if you haven't expressed interest in the campaign already, please do so via the Birchal platform. That way you'll be able to keep up to date with when the offer does go live so that you can be one of the first investors. So do you have an idea of what capital that you'll require for the app development, and what is the time frame to build or launch?
I think this is an interesting question because our goal is to have the app launched within the next 12 months, definitely. Within the next 6 to 9 months would be fantastic. But we're not going to build an app from scratch. We're not silly enough to think that's the best way to go about it. Our whole technology platform is based on Shopify, and there are a lot of good mobile apps for Shopify. The key really in getting an app membership system to work is less about building an app, and it's more about designing a fantastic membership ecosystem. So we want to have really clever ways to be able to bring people back to that app. So obviously, you can release an app, you can get people to install it, but if there's no good reasons for them to continually use it, then you're not going to reap those benefits. So I think what will happen is that it will take us, let's say, 6 to 9 months to actually get the app and the membership system in place, and then it will be a course of the next year or so of testing out what helps keep those users engaged, what makes it sticky, and then once you've got that flywheel working perfectly, it's time to just get more and more of those people up the top and get them into the bottom before those benefits get cumulatively more and more realized.
Great. So with the growth of the business, did you refer to 5 times growth? And can you explain why you are raising capital externally as opposed to an organic growth model?
Yeah, this is we talked about this a bit earlier. Yeah, great question. Essentially, as we mentioned before, we've focused since the last Birchal raise on growth of the company, hence the 500% growth that we've had in the last 3 years. We kind of have a choice now where we could take our foot off the gas pedal, so to speak, slow down our growth, and then use that to invest solely in the membership and app side of things. But we think that the best value for the business is found in doing both at the same time. So we want to continue pushing hard on that growth side of things to keep putting more people on the top of the funnel at the same time as building a system to bring them back in again at the bottom. And so although we could do it on our own, we think this is going to be a better production of value, not just for us, but also for investors in the business.
Great, thank you. So for people who are new to the investor game, are you looking specifically for people who have a strong investment portfolio, or are you looking for people who are new to investment as well?
I think that's a great question. I think last time we had both. We had sophisticated investors who, you know, maybe 20, 30K investment sizes, and we also had small retail investors who were able to, you know, put in maybe $500 or $250, I think even. And I think we want both, because at the end of the day, we love that we've got these people on board for our journey, and that's, even if you're putting in $250, that's fantastic, because we want you as an ambassador for our company, and we see that as
Extremely valuable.
Extremely valuable. That's like, you know, you can tell your friends, and you can tell, you know, you can buy from us. So we just love having everyone on board.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. There are two distinct benefits you get. Sophisticated investors can bring business contacts, for example, to the business, or other sorts of advice, and then unsophisticated retail investors, they can bring a huge amount of benefit from that ambassadorship. So absolutely want both of them.
Brilliant. So in terms of your long-term plans for growth, do you have any future proofing in place just to avoid any risk?
I'll try to answer that question. I mean, there's always risk in growing any business. Future proofing in place, I guess one thing that we've done with all of our companies is be extremely lean in scaling them. So I think always the best future proofing is an ability to go backwards. You know, if what the person asking this question is really asking, what will happen if things go wrong? The answer is we want to make sure that we're not so entrenched in a high fixed cost base that we can't turn around. So yeah, I guess that would be the main answer to the question is, you know, we make sure we've got flexibility to always turn around if we need to.
Great. So this question's pretty great, actually. So why hasn't anyone else done what you're doing? Has the industry been ripe for disruption for a long time? And in other words, why now and why you?
Yeah, so I'm not going to pretend like we're the only cool flower kids on the block. Since kind of since we started, there's been a few other players that do similar stuff to what we do. One of which, actually, a company called Lovely, got bought, I believe, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 35 million.
35 mil. So they did a fantastic job. But yeah, basically, I think when we started, there were very, very few options, and there still are. There's very few players in this industry.
Yeah, I think I guess the part of that question that's going to be asked next is what makes us stand out from those competitors directly. And I think really the answer to that question is that we have got a lot of experience. As we said before, you know, we've started 4 successful startups. And I think that really is an incredibly differentiating factor between us and anybody else running this. You know, it's not to say that I don't think in any business you need to be 100% unique in what you're doing. You just need to be the best at doing it.
That was exactly the next question I was going to ask. So how important would digital marketing be to your growth? And are you trying to rely less on social media platforms?
Yeah, I mean, digital marketing is important. It's important to all our businesses, and it kind of is our bread and butter, as Alex says. Like, you spend a lot of time on these platforms, tweaking them. Do we want to rely less on them? Yes, in part. In part because we want to focus on the subscription piece, and we want to focus on the retention piece.
Yeah, but as long as they're profitable channels, of course, we'll continue to push them.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing to note here, actually, the question was specifically about social channels. So you kind of have 2 different types of digital marketing channels for the most part that exist. There's social, which you use for discovering new products, and then there's intent-based platforms like Google, where someone already knows what they're looking for and they go there first. Flowers is fantastic for intent-based platforms like Google, and that is big part of the retention piece. Is we're trying to take people who've already acquired through Google and get them back ourselves without having them go back to Google again. But the interesting thing about the social marketing piece is that you need to have a product to be able to market well on something like, you know, Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. You need to have a product that's going to stop somebody scrolling. And flowers on their own aren't necessarily the best product for that, because everyone knows that you can send flowers, and when they want to do it, they just go search for it. But that's a big part of what we want to do as well in the next year or 2, is to really push a fantastic subscription offering. That's something that we know has had huge success in the UK with some other companies. Freddie's Flowers is a great example. Yeah. And no one has done that, a similar kind of offering here in Australia. And having a subscription offering where for example, the price point is low enough to make it something that someone would want every 2 weeks consistently, where you have a great structure that keeps them from bouncing again, so that 4 weeks in you go, oh, if you stay this week, we're going to give you a free vase. The next week we're going to give you a free opportunity to send gift cards to your friends. The next week we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Just really designing a fantastic subscription model and making it an experience that wows someone all the way through, becomes a unique selling point as a business that we can then take onto platforms like Facebook and Instagram, because it's a product that people haven't seen in Australia before. And so we're actually really excited not to get ourselves away from paid social marketing, but actually to be putting in place a product that we can push on paid social marketing, because that will open up a massive channel for us.
Brilliant. So it sounds like there's a lot of big growth plans. What does this look like in terms of the Floraly team expansion, in terms of staff, and when you move into new areas like app development? Will the team be expanded for everything to be done in-house, or is there a plan to outsource?
We work with a digital marketing agency for part of our actual marketing in conjunction with our internal team. So that's part of the scalability side of things that you asked before. How do we not get too many fixed costs?
We're also able to kind of leverage the learnings from our other businesses. So not only do we have Floraly as a standalone business with their standalone staff, but all our staff from our other businesses also talk to the Floraly team, and so we're able to kind of everyone's able to help out where necessary. So in terms of new staff when we grow, we're constantly looking for new staff, and I think we're at the moment looking for a new marketing exec as well.
But I think to directly kind of answer that question, we will only hire new people when we need to, because that's a big part of making sure we don't increase our fixed cost base. Specifically to do with the app, it's unlikely I know we're not going to hire an in-house developer, for example, to build this app, because that's the whole reason why we've got a tech stack that includes Shopify and all of the other apps you can get on Shopify that build on top of that. You end up basically paying monthly subscription costs, instead of having an in-house developer. That gives you flexibility in terms of cash flow outlay, because you're not having to outlay hundreds of thousands of dollars straight away. But it also means that, again, like I said before, you can step backwards and turn things off if you need to. So we will definitely scale the team as needed, but the main purpose of this investment round is not to be growing a huge team. It is to be reinvesting scalably in these particular projects.
Great. So I'm not sure if this answers the question specifically, but if there are limitations for the Shopify version of the app, is the plan to build separate plugins, or will you build a custom app eventually?
Custom app eventually it's not going to happen anytime soon. We've already spec'd out all the everything you need for this particular type of membership re-engagement app, and the functionality is all there, or you can get in Shopify.
I think the site's actually a really good example of, if you go to our site, you'll see it's based on Shopify, but there's actually a lot of there has been a lot of custom dev work done to the site. So you can kind of navigate through the site, and you'll see a lot of custom elements like date pickers and little elements that are not stock standard. So there's definitely opportunity to customize, and I'm sure we will customize within the limits of what can be customized.
But we're quite confident that with the Shopify app and the kind of customization we can already achieve with our in-house team, that we'll be able to deliver on this particular product.
Brilliant. So currently, are you relying on any particular partners for your growth plans?
What kind of partners? You mean delivery, like operational partners, or?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have a mix. We have our own staff in Sydney and Melbourne, and then we work directly with. So we source our flowers from farms. One of the farmers is also one of Australia's biggest flower wholesalers, and we work directly with them for some of our delivery operations in other centres like Perth. So Perth is a bit of a funny one in Australia, because you can't actually take flowers across the border. So even if we wanted to, we couldn't post flowers or send flowers in any way from here to there. They'll just get picked up by customs. And so, we work directly with Wayfx, for example, in Perth to be able to do all of our operations and delivery, and it's a really great relationship.
Similar to our delivery drivers, we don't have our own delivery drivers. We use third-party delivery drivers.
So are there any risks if any of those partnerships were to fall through? So if any of those suppliers were to go under, perhaps, and how would you mitigate those risks?
Yeah, great question.
Like Alex said, our flower suppliers, they're the biggest and the best in the industry. So I think those risks are
Pretty small.
They've been around for decades. So I would say those risks are very small. And other partners, like our delivery partners, there are other delivery partners. If one were to fall through, then it's pretty easy to swap and change.
And I think, to answer the question of like what would happen if one of these partners did actually fall through, putting aside the fact that I think it's an unlikely occurrence, I think the answer to that question is quite simply, for example, if our delivery partner if our production partner, Wafex, in Perth pulled out, then we would just simply send staff there and set up our own operations the same way we have in Melbourne. But the reason why we don't do that up front is, again, about scalability and about the ability to step backwards if needed. So, I think in all business, maintaining that right balance between doing everything yourself and in-housing skills, and then working with partnerships is really important, because you don't want to have too big a fixed cost base, or you can't you increase your risk too much. But you always want to have the flexibility to be able to cover things if needed, if something goes wrong. So I think we're quite comfortable in our ability to take over if something happened to one of these partners. But at the moment, while those partnerships exist and those opportunities exist, we think it's definitely a better way to scale a business, because it is less risky and it allows us to focus on what we do well.
Great. So obviously, climate change is a huge issue, and it does affect a lot of companies, and I imagine particularly it would affect your company. How do you plan to deal with any issues that might arise from extreme weather events, things like that?
Yeah, I mean,
This happen.
it's true. Flowers are very susceptible to temperatures and like droughts, as you can imagine.
Flooding in Queensland with sunflowers, where we couldn't get any sunflower stock in. Yeah. I think the beauty and the answer to this question really comes around having a flexible range to present to customers. So, there are kind of two different types of flower buyers. There's someone looking for a specific product, like wanting to send sunflowers, and people who are wanting to send a gift to somebody. And the vast majority of flower customers are someone who just want to send a gift. And so really the answer to that is about being reactive and making sure that if we do lose access to some sort of flowers due to climate change, flooding, or whatever it might be, that we're able to put together and present different products and deliver them to customers quickly, which is actually exactly what we do. So.
And I mean, flowers are one component of our business. We sell lots of chocolates and wines and candles, gift hampers, and all sorts of other products. Like the Christmas trees are alive right now, and they're always like a huge seller. So we have a whole range of other products that are not just flowers.
Great. So your organic traffic to your platform appears to be quite strong. What percentage of revenue from different traffic channels, and what are your main traffic, sources?
Yeah, organic is a big one. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, to be perfectly honest.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah, we can get those numbers in an email and shoot it through after this, if that helps. But yeah, the big drivers would be, to kind of broadly answer the question, organic and paid.
Right. So someone has asked a question about revenue and profit for the next 12 months. So through equity crowdfunding, prospective financials can be relatively speculative for early stage startups. So that's not something that Floraly will be able to answer at the moment. So any financials that you do want to see in terms of past financials will be included in the offer document when it goes live. So please ensure you have expressed your interest through the Birchal platform so that you can access the offer document when it does go live. So if you are selling Christmas trees, and that will be obviously a revenue driver for you, have you considered that this might take away important revenue from some of the charities that rely on these sales?
So these are these small little Christmas trees. I don't know if I've never seen a charity sell the small little Christmas trees.
I think it's also a very different market. This is actually an interesting thing to note about flower gifting, is that the kind of person that goes to a local florist, for example, to buy flowers to take home is a very different customer to the ones that we serve. And in the same way, the person that's going to go to a local, a charity to buy a Christmas tree for themselves is a very different customer to someone who wants to send a Christmas tree to a loved one who lives in another city. And the thing is that if, for example, you wanted to send a Christmas tree to someone who lived in Brisbane, it would be impossible through a charity because they don't have the ability to actually post that and do the same kind of gifting experience we have. So we don't actually expect, in the same way that we don't cut into local florist operations or a business for personal consumption, we cut into the gifting side of things. We wouldn't cut into charitable Christmas trees either because they're bought by people for themselves in their own home as opposed to sending them as gifts.
Great, that's a great distinction, and thank you so much for clarifying, because I do understand that you do quite a bit of charity work on the side as well. Brilliant. So obviously you're operating in Australia now. Are there any plans to expand internationally?
Yes, but in the short term, we're really going to focus on the retention piece. We're going to focus on the subscription piece,
and use that to push profitability.
Yeah. And then in about a year from now or so, then we want to execute on the next stages of our plan.
Great, that's good to know. Are you looking at expanding into any other verticals or horizons at the moment?
Well, we kind of do naturally. I mean, I think a good thing to understand about our company is that people don't necessarily send flowers because they love flowers themselves. They send a gift. They send a thought, a feeling of wanting to make someone happy. And there's lots of things that can fall into that. So that is why we don't just do flowers. We do gift hampers, gift boxes, Christmas trees, and a lot falls under that remit. So yeah, we'll absolutely expand into other areas when they fit in with that whole gifting framework. And as we continue to build a customer base, it is a great way to bring them back, to give them other things to buy that aren't just flowers. So yeah, we are doing it and we'll continue to do it.
Fantastic, that's great. So in terms of the data that you collect from your customers, how do you keep this secure?
Yeah, Shopify is the short answer to that. Shopify is one of the biggest businesses in the world, and it has an incredibly secure data network. So we don't store any of that on our local servers. It's all taken care of through Shopify.
Yeah, we don't handle any credit card payments. It's all handled similar to email compliance. We use Klaviyo, which is again industry standard. So
yeah, we don't want to get into that.
I'm sure that is a lot of people peace of mind.
Yeah.
So we don't store any data on our own servers. It's all stored on the secure servers.
Brilliant. So obviously you've got a significant amount of investors on board from your last raise. How often do you communicate with your investors? Do you give them the opportunity to, have their voices heard? And how will you be communicating with investors moving forward after this raise?
Yeah, great question. We do it through investor updates over email. And I think the interesting thing we've always found is that each investor has a different desire for communication. I mean, some people just want to have updates, and we actually get not as many responses as you think, because people like to hear what's going on and don't necessarily have questions to ask. So we answer every single question that comes back to us whenever we send through these updates, and we'll absolutely continue to do so with this group of investors. But yeah, I mean, we welcome more questions than we get, to be perfectly honest. So I think I've said this in a few of the emails I've sent out to people, like, please send us through questions, because we love answering anything about our business, and we live and breathe this. So yeah, we'll continue to send out investor updates and answer anything that comes through.
Brilliant. So which agency do you currently use for your digital marketing?
We work with Sparrow. So they're one of the biggest digital marketing agencies in Australia.
Perfect. Can you tell us?
Sorry, as a little aside, I should say, we also work with them for a number of our other startups as well. So we kind of get the benefit of having multiple learnings, again, within that space and within their team.
Brilliant. Can you tell us a little bit about your board? I know that you did mention that in terms of the cybersecurity front, you do utilize Shopify, so this might not apply so much, but do you have anyone with cybersecurity skills in your leadership team or on the board in an event of a personal information or data breach?
Yeah,
I can't say that we do.
Yeah, we don't. I honestly, because we don't host anything ourselves and handle any of that private security information, I have no concerns. If something were to go wrong, it wouldn't be something that would fall directly to us. It would be a problem that would be solved by Shopify. I don't know how many people on this call know much about Shopify, because they're a kind of back-end business. They're not so consumer-facing. They handle 10% of all of the e-commerce transactions in America. They're
multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah, exactly. So we are quite comfortable that they've got the skills to keep it locked down.
Yeah, I think we can trust them.
Yeah.
So have you had any feedback, either good or bad, from your first round of investors?
No bad feedback,
Actually,
thankfully. So
bad feedback. Kind of like Alex said, like we haven't had a huge amount of feedback.
yeah,
But
please
reach out to us.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, people are all happy with the growth. We obviously talked to all our investors about this upcoming round at the moment. So far, everyone seems happy, no complaints, and yeah.
Okay. There's been another question about cyber breaches, but I think that we have covered it off a bit now that obviously.
Well, we haven't had a cyber breach yet.
I don't know if
Obviously,
Shopify has ever had a cyber breach.
Yeah. We've obviously got two-factor on everything, two-factor authentication on everything. Yeah, we take all the precautions that we can with customer data.
Brilliant. So what are your current gross margins, and do you know how they would compare to similar companies such as Roses Only or Lynch Group?
Yeah, good question. So Lynch is very different. Lynch is a wholesaler. They sell to Woolworths and to some other flower companies in the flower markets. But Roses Only is a reasonable comparison to us. So our gross margins are 50% or thereabouts. And I don't know what Roses Only would be, but I do know that roses on their own are a very different market. So we're actually quite close to James Stevens, who was the original founder of Roses Only, and I've talked to him about his business. And I won't reveal any numbers about his business at all, but I do know that roses are a product you can charge a lot more for, but there are also products which you have to pay a lot more to acquire customers. So although they're obviously still flowers, they're a slightly different market. You're also targeting different people, mostly men wanting to send to their partners, as opposed to kind of flower gifting we do, which is mostly women sending to women. So a very different market.
Brilliant. That's good to know. So what have your proudest moments been or collaborations to date since starting the business?
We did a fantastic collaboration with Amazon last year and Bernardo's, which is kind of Empower with Flowers, which is a really cool collab, and we donated a bunch of money from the sale of a specific bouquet to that charity. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that was for, I can't remember the name of the TV show. It was celebrating the launch of one of Amazon's
Alison Hart.
TV show, and yeah, it was great. I mean, they had us up on billboards all around the major centers of Australia.
Yeah,
that was a fantastic one. I think as an ongoing partnership, probably one of my proudest collaborations with OzHarvest. That fact that we have donated so many meals people in need through our partnership with them, something I'm very, very proud of.
It's incredible. So how do you address reviews and career issues? Is there a customer service that you have? How does that work?
Yes, we have 2 full-time customer service people, and their job, they're actually, I mean, if you guys have a look at our reviews, everyone does rave about the positive customer service we offer. I mean, their job is full-time, just making sure that everybody's happy. We have a policy which is very clear on our website everywhere that if you're not happy, we guarantee replacement or refunds, no questions asked. So our kind of core belief with all of our businesses, Floraly included, is that if you can make your customers happy, they'll come back, and that's the key to success. And even if that costs you a bit of money in the short term, in refunding or replacing, it pays for itself in every penny later on.
Absolutely. So how do you ensure employee welfare throughout your supply chain?
Yeah.
Employee welfare. No, I think we.
That's a great question. I mean, that's part of sourcing locally as much as we can. Look, supply chains are complicated. I won't pretend that that I know every single person who works in the farms that we source our flowers from. I do know that we only work with the biggest. We either work with Australian farmers if they're going to be local and small, or we work with the biggest flower wholesalers for any of our international orders. And I know that's not a full answer to the question. We are, still a relatively small business, so it's possible to do a full audit of our chain. But at least I know that these companies are so big that they have to go through a lot of compliance themselves.
Brilliant, thank you. So speaking of your small wastage and your collaborations with Oz Harvest, have you considered the prospect of giving unsold flowers with meals?
Yeah, I mean, Oz Harvest are actually super close to our warehouse. But I think it doesn't really happen that much. I think that it doesn't happen in meaningful quantities that it would be helpful to Oz Harvest I think it might have happened on an ad hoc basis, but it's very rare that we'd have the kind of quantities of flowers left over.
Yeah, so to kind of put this in context, like the way that our business works is that we're either sourcing the flowers after you've ordered if your date of order is far enough in advance, or the way that we reorder the products on our website is such that, if we have a lot of one type of flower coming in, then we make sure that we have bouquets that contain a type of flower up the top, so they're more likely to be purchased. And that way, we're basically always going through our flower stock. So we never end a week with a whole bunch of flowers that are going to sit there and die, because we're constantly making sure we reorder our products so that we're making effective usage of our stock levels. And that's obviously partly an environmental concern, but that's good business.
Brilliant. So obviously you've done equity crowdfunding in the past. Why have you decided to go down the equity crowdfunding route for a second time versus other types of funding?
Yeah, I think kind of like we touched on before, we loved the experience with Birchal last time, and we loved getting all those new ambassadors on board with us. So getting 600 people to join us last time, I think it's actually just good business sense. You get 600 new ambassadors to go out and tell all their friends. So I think it makes really good business sense from our point of view. It's a fantastic process, and
working with so we have worked with much larger institutional investors for some of our other companies, and to be perfectly honest, it's a very different type of investment, and they bring with them different types of benefits and skills, and I don't think that is as suited to a consumer business like Floraly. Floraly is customer facing, and what we get the best benefit from is the love of our brand and having as many people to spread that love as possible. And I think that this is just a better fit for crowdfunding.
Great answer. So is your goal to, someone's asked if your goal is to eventually sell the business, and if so, what is your preferred method of exit? So through equity crowdfunding, it's really difficult to predict what exit opportunity might arise in the future, and that can be relatively speculative in nature for early stage startups. So not something that Floraly can answer at this point in time, but ways that investors might receive a return on their investment through equity crowdfunding could be if the business decides to pay dividends. It could be if they organize a share buyback scheme eventually. It could be if they do an initial public offering and offer up the offer to trade shares on a trading platform such as the ASX. There's a multitude of options that could happen down the future, but at this stage, we are unable to discuss exit opportunities, unfortunately, but I hope that answers that question a little bit. So in terms of your business strategy, would you say you're obviously a B2C company? Do you have a lot of corporate partnerships currently, and how does that work?
We are predominantly B2C. We do have a small number of corporate orders that do come through, especially Christmas trees. Again, Christmas trees is actually one of our biggest corporate sectors. Gifting sectors. Yeah. So Christmas trees, and we are seeing a small amount of corporate customers, but no, we have not in a dedicated way gone after the B2B market.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. I just don't think that's where the largest opportunity is. To be perfectly honest, the great thing about e-commerce is how scalable it is when you can get these pieces of the machine, the marketing machine, to work together. And corporate B2B side of things, it's just not as scalable. They'll ask for discounts that cut into margins, and also the only way to contact them is basically manually. So we feel there's much better opportunity scaling what we've got in the B2C side of things.
Great to know. So obviously a large part of what you do, and the reason that you've come through equity crowdfunding is because community is a really big part of what you do. How do you intend to keep that part of the business as you grow and scale and become bigger?
The community part, do you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, that's a great question. I think the best way is to maintain community. There's kind of two types of community here. There's investor community, and then there's a kind of community for all of your customers together. The best way to maintain an investor community is just us communicating. And like we said before, we'd actually welcome more questions from our investors if they had them. The best way to maintain community through customers and that brand loyalty is, I think, just through fantastic customer service. I think the more you're communicating and answering every query you come across online, happier people are, and the happier that community is. And the best way to do that is just to make sure that you invest in customer service staff to always be on top of anything. Yeah.
Brilliant. So it doesn't look like we've got any more questions. That being said, I suspect there will be some questions that pop up after this webinar. So if anybody does have any questions, how can they reach you?
Yeah, send us an email at invest@floraly.com.au.
Brilliant. Oh, we just have one more question. So how much of your growth has been fueled by organic growth versus paid media?
It's hard to say off the cuff. I don't have that data, but
it's also hard to say because organic is a bit misleading in the sense that the more work you do on paid drives traffic to organic. People hear about your brand through ads, and so then they come to Google, they search for you, and they arrive at you organically. So it's definitely impossible to separate the two.
We've done a lot of work, a lot of investment in building out our organic SEO rankings. So yeah, I'd like to think that a lot of that work is paying off, and we have a lot of long tail pages that generate sales.
Yeah, exactly. Each individual page might only address a tiny portion of that search volume that exists in the market, but because we're the only companies addressing those, we can capture actually in total a lot of demand.
Right. So are you currently engaged with a PR agency for earned media?
No, not for Floraly.
No problem.
We have in the past, and we've had some good experiences with it, and it's just not been the focus at the moment. I think if you can earn that media yourself, and the earned media landscape is changing a bit and is a bit more pay to play than it used to be. So for anyone on this call that's kind of been around the e-commerce space for the last 5 years, 5 years ago, you used to be able to genuinely get articles written about yourself in a kind of earned media way, and you can still do that now, but it's leaning way more towards paid. So all those kind of if you look at Urban for example, every single Urban article about flower delivery in Australia has us at #1, and that's not an earned media thing. That's you pay for it. And when we've kind of done our maths, it just works out that you get better value if you pay the publishers themselves directly rather than paying a PR firm. So that's kind of the route we've gone down.
Great, that's good to know. Someone's asked if you have financial statements available, and yes, they will be available in the offer document when the investment offer does go live. I did put the link to the Floraly Birchal profile in the chat. So if you haven't expressed your interest, please do so via that link. So someone has asked if they'd be able to get a reasonably priced seasonal flower bouquet weekly at home. Would you service that market?
Yes, that's part of our upcoming subscription offering. Yeah, that's exactly what we want to be targeting. Yeah. So it's something that you can technically do through our website at the moment, but it's not a fully built out offering yet. But we will have that as a really incredible standalone product, in the next 6 to 9 months.
Terrific. So if anybody does have any more questions, do reach out to the team. There's another way you can reach out via their Birchal profile. There is a message button on the profile which you can click, and you can send emails directly to the Floraly team. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today and for the brilliant questions. There were so many. And thank you so much, Stefan and Alec, for your time today. It's been excellent, and I can't wait to see how the race goes.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much, Em. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Cheers.